Good morning and welcome to the English class for Standard 10th. Unit 2, Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. And naturally it's written by Nelson Mandela. Now before we start reading the lesson, there are certain things which we need to know as a background. Apartheid is a political system that separates people according to their race. In other words, racism. The black are a particular kind of a race. Were considered to be inferior in South Africa. So here the question is asked, can you see which of the three countries named below had such a political system until very recently? Where was apartheid practiced until recently? It was South Africa. Have you heard the name of Nelson Mandela and his African National Congress? He spent a lifetime fighting against apartheid. Mandela had to spend 30 years in prison. Just imagine that the prime time of his life he had spent in prison. Finally, democratic elections were held in South Africa in 1994, that is just before some 26 years, and Mandela became the first black president of a new nation. In this extract from his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, that is the name of his autobiography, Mandela speaks about the historic occasion, the inauguration, the inauguration of, say, installation of the first democratic government in South Africa. Can you guess what the occasion might be? Check your guess with the news item from the BBC on 10th May 1994. Now, this is the news item. Mandela becomes South Africa's first black president. Nelson Mandela has become South Africa's president after more than 3 centuries of white rule. Mr. Mandela's African National Congress Party won 252 of 400 seats in the first democratic elections of South Africa's history. The inauguration ceremony took place in the Union Building Amphitheatre in Pretoria today. Amphitheatre is a theatre without a roof. And the name of the place, that is Pretoria, that is the capital of South Africa. And dignitaries from more than 140 countries around the world. Never, never again will this beautiful land experience the oppression of one by another, said Nelson Mandela in his address. Jubilant scenes on the streets of Pretoria followed the ceremony with blacks, whites, and coloreds celebrating together. More than 1 lakh South African men, women, and children of all races sang and danced with joy. Now, this is the news item that appeared in mentioned over here. The news was okay, BBC News. This is from the BBC News. Now, we switch on to the lesson, the main part of the lesson here. Okay, now we start. Now, this is say directly the speech of Nelson Mandela that he gave on that day when he took oath as a president. 10th May dawned bright and clear. Dawn means it started, it presented itself, it began very bright and clear. For the past few days, I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respect before the inauguration. Besieged means surrounded closely by. So he says that for the past few days, many people from all over the world were coming to meet me, and I was surrounded by them. The inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. So many international leaders had never come to South Africa, and this will be the largest gathering of such international leaders. The ceremonies took place in a lovely sandstone amphitheater formed by the Union Building in Pretoria. Amphitheater, as I told you, it's a building it's a theater without the roof. For decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy, and now it was the site of rainbow gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. For decades, decade is a period of 10 years. For a number of decades, this particular place, Pretoria, the capital as well as South Africa, was the place of white supremacy. Supremacy means the whites were ruling over that seat. And now it was the site of rainbow gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic non racial government. Now, whites ruling there, it was a rainbow gathering, and people from of different colors, different races, and the autumn day. I was accompanied by my daughter Zenani, the day on which say he took oath. On that day his daughter was with him. On the podium, Mr. De Klerk was first sworn in as second deputy president. Then, after him, here the names are a little difficult for us to understand. Sorry. Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as first deputy president. Then it was my turn. It's always say the as far as say the position is concerned, the person with a lower rank takes oath first, and at last the person with the highest rank takes oath. So it was his turn. I pledged to obey and uphold the Constitution. I took a pledge that I would obey and uphold the Constitution and to devote myself to the well being of the Republic and its people. To the assembled guests and the watching world, I said. Now, from here, his speech starts. Today, all of us do, by our presence here, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. Confer means to give. Today, we are all here to give glory and hope to newborn liberty. Of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. Now, South Africa had undergone, say, extraordinary human disaster. They were considered to be inferior, they were discriminated, they were troubled, they were considered slaves. That was the extraordinary human disaster. Now, out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long and that went on for a very long period of time, now he says that from that must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. After such a lot of suffering, we should be able to create a society of which the whole humanity should be feel proud of. We who were outlaws not so long ago, outlaws means because of its policy of apartheid, many countries had earlier broken off diplomatic relations with South Africa. And countries, as they were no other nations were keeping relations with them, they were outlaws. We who were outlaws not so long ago have today been given the rare privilege to be host of the nations of the world on our own soil. Earlier, no nation kept relations with us, and today they are our guests. We have welcomed them, and people from all over the world have come here. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come. Now, here, he thanks all the guests for coming there, but the reason that he gives, that we have to keep in mind, and it's a wonderful reason. I thank We thank all our distinguished international guests for having come to take possession with the people of our country. They also have come here to take possession with the people. The people of our country are taking possession, but the people from all over the world have also come here to take possession with the people of our country of what is called a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. Now, this was a victory of human dignity. It was the victory of justice. And to possess that victory with the people of our country, people from all over the world had come. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. Emancipation means freedom from restriction. Now we are free. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. Now, here he says that politically we have become free, but we still need liberty in the real sense. And so we pledge ourselves to liberate all our people. We really want to make them free from poverty. Besides that, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. We want to make them free from all these things. One's rightful benefits. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. Here on the South African soil, now nobody would be a slave and nobody would enslave anybody else. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. Reign means rule. God bless Africa. This was now. Where did the ceremony take place? I am sure you will be able to find the answer. Can you can you name any public building in India that are made of sandstones? In social studies, you can surely name them. You can find out the names of such buildings from social science textbook. Can you say how 10th May is an autumn day in South Africa? Now the seasons in different nations are different, and autumn falls in Africa on the at the beginning of the speech. Mandela mentions an extraordinary human disaster. What does he mean by this? I suppose you understood. The suffering of the people for so many years was. What does he mean by this? What is the glorious human achievement? to get rid of that slavery was the and for peace and justice, that was a glorious human achievement. He speaks of at the end, that's what he talks about at the end. What does Mandela thank international leaders for? He thanks them for what? For being with the people of South Africa to take possession of the peace, just of the victory of justice and peace and all that, that's mentioned over there. What ideal does he set out for the future of South Africa? That here nobody shall be slave, that we have already read. I am sure you'll be able to find the